Quick backstory. I work at a gas station on a main route, and we see a lot of travelers passing through. Only one person works each shift, and it's a 24-hour store. We're short-staffed, so I agreed to an overnight, something that I'm not too fond of doing. But extra money? I'll take that. I'm a female, and I work in a state that's always had self-serve gas stations. So late this night, when a guy comes in, I ask him if he needed any help. He says no, he's just getting gas at the pump, but needs to use the restroom. I give him the key and go back to work on whatever invoices we got that day. The guy uses the bathroom, returns the key, and then heads back outside. When after about 5, maybe 7 minutes later, he comes back in the store and tells me that he's confused about the pump. He directly says, "You might have to come outside to help me." This is something that customers don't often say. They usually just complain that the pump isn't working. So I've already got a weird feeling about this guy. I shake it off because, visually, he looks like a nerd, and I don't feel afraid of him. I look at my register to see what error the pump came up with. But there are no errors. The register doesn't even say that the pump was in use. Even if someone tries to pay and nothing's wrong with their payment, the monitor will say, "Payment or loyalty timed out." But there was no sign of him even trying to use it before asking me for help. I ask him if he just wants to pay inside. He agrees to this, goes and grabs his wallet out of the car, and then comes back to slap down $10 on the counter. I give him his receipt, and once again he says, "Can you come out and help me? I don't understand the machine." I say, "We aren't really allowed to leave the store during overnight shifts, as it's just me here, and it's not safe to leave the store." Looking back, I don't know why I told him I was alone. But again, he didn't seemingly appear threatening. He proceeds to say, "I don't understand what it's asking me. I need help. I mean, I'm not scary or anything." I tell him again that I can't go outside. It's store policy for the overnight shift. And say, "It's not that you're scary. I just can't leave. I would have to tell a little old lady asking for help at this hour the same exact thing." Which is true. We're not even allowed to take out the trash during overnight shifts. He starts to walk away from the register counter, but then again stops at the door and asks me one final time to come outside and help him. Now, I'm pretty annoyed at this point. I've said no twice now. I'm not going, so stop asking. In a super annoyed tone, I break down all the steps he needs to follow in order to fill up his tank, before ending the statement with, "I'm not going outside." After this exchange, he finally leaves the store and heads back to his car. The register then tells me that he had no trouble pumping gas. At this point, I'm watching him on the cameras to make sure that there's not any issue. I'm not 100% sure because there's no audio in our surveillance system, but it looked as if he were speaking to someone in the rear seat of his car. Not full-on conversational style, but slyly and on the hush. We have multiple cameras around the property, so as I clicked on different ones to show me other angles, I didn't see any passengers in his car at all. So now I know one of two things. Either he is full-on, out loud talk to himself crazy, or he had someone potentially lying in his back seat, fully concealed. Neither one of those options are very inviting. Normally, a person such as this walking in and having problems at the pump wouldn't give me such an issue, but the accumulative weirdness of it all definitely stood out. Opting to ask me to go outside instead of bringing in money at 3 a.m. is weird enough, but add in how he didn't bother to use the pump before he came inside to ask for help, claiming that it wasn't working, and then not taking my first no for an answer only adds to the strangeness. When he pulled off, I thought that I should write down his license plate, just in case anything else out of the norm were to happen. But to my surprise, the car had a black garbage bag wrapped around the rear plate, making it virtually unreadable. not sure what he or they were planning, whether it was a robbery, abduction, or something more. But I'm forever glad to not have walked blindly into whatever their trap was. Hey everybody, if you'd like to directly support us as a channel, please consider joining our Patreon. Your support allows me to dedicate more time and effort into creating the content that you enjoy. And by becoming a patron, you'll be able to interact with me directly, be listed within our content as a backer, assist with content creation, and even gain early access to all of our upcoming releases. Find me at patreon.com/Malevolent Mischief, or simply click the link in the description. I look forward to bringing you even more creepy and unsettling content. Now, let's get back to the stories. About a decade ago now, I was in my final semester of college. I worked at a department store in the mall. I didn't have a car yet, so I asked for solely day shifts, because taking public transport, it's 2 hours both to and from home. So basically, if I had a closing shift, I'd get done at 11 p.m., but I wouldn't walk through my front door until 1 a.m. This wasn't a perfect system, as there were occasions where I would get closing shifts, much to my annoyance, as most of my days started with the 6:45 a.m. class. This would cause my mother to worry, because who wants their kid on public transport that late? There were times when she could come get me, and that was much appreciated, although I did realize that it was a bit of a hassle to get my younger sisters out that late as well, so I'd feel guilty for requesting it of my mom. My managers, being the jerks that they were, gave me a week straight of closing shifts, fully knowing my situation. I was pissed, but whatever, I needed that paycheck. One night, I had just finished my shift, gotten on the bus, and was minding my business when my iPod died. I was annoyed, but I kept my earbuds in, tried to occupy myself by playing a crossword on my phone. About 2 seats behind me, I hear these 2 men speaking Spanish. Now, my stepmother is Puerto Rican, so while I understand a fair bit of Spanish, I don't really speak it. I hear them talking, but I don't really pay attention because it's rude to eavesdrop and all. Until they say, "That girl up there." This perks my ears up. I keep my earbuds in, that way they think that I can't hear them, but I continue listening. What they're saying is horrific. To paraphrase, they knew my stop, the second to last one, before the bus gets back to the terminal. And while my stop is at the front of my neighborhood, there are no real streetlights, and at this time of night, it's pretty much empty. To put it simply, they were planning on, quote, snatching that piece of ass up. I was about 20 minutes from home, so I knew that I had to act quickly. Since I knew they could see me, I pretended that I was simply playing on my phone, oblivious, while I was actually texting my mom. "Mom, can you please meet me at the bus stop?" 5 minutes go by, no answer. We're getting closer to my stop, so I decide to call her cell. No answer. I call the house phone, and thank God she finally answers. It's about 12:30 a.m., so she was clearly asleep. I try to talk as cheerily and calmly as I can. This was our convo. "Hey Mom, did you get my text?" No. What's up?" "Oh, I sent you a picture of these jeans I'm gonna order online when I get home. I really need your opinion, so I'd really appreciate if you went to look at the sale, since it ends at 1 a.m. I'm glad that even half asleep, my mom is sharp as a tack. She gets the hint that I need her to look at her cell phone right now. So I say goodbye and just hope for the best. We get to my stop, and to my joy, I see my mom's car. I quickly gather all my belongings from the seat and hightail it off the bus. I don't even look behind me to see if they're following me. I just jump right into the car and tell my mom to go. As we're pulling off, I peer in the rear view and see these two guys standing in the middle of the street, staring at the car. Once we're home, I fully explained the situation to my mom just a little bit better. I'm so thankful that even though she didn't know exactly what was up, she didn't hesitate to just hop in the car and come grab me. The next morning, I called my job and told them that I quit. No more public transport for me. Thanks to my stepmom for teaching me Spanish, and thanks to my mom for getting the hint. This story is from a few years back now. I'm older, more mature, and no longer work for this particular employer. But at the time, I was an employee of Ronald McDonald. I'd been at my Golden Arch location for just over 2 years at this point, minus the 3 months or so that I was on maternity leave. In fact, that leave had just come to an end, and I was now the proud new mother to my son. Just a little background info early on. I've heard it since his birth. My son does not look like me. He much more resembles my husband. That, in addition to the fact that I'm a baby face myself, I often would get mistaken for a babysitter or nanny instead of mom. This specific evening, I had just wrapped up my shift slinging fries and Big Macs when my husband and our now 4-month-old little boy came to pick me up. They came into the dining room and I took this opportunity to introduce my baby boy to all of my coworkers. We ordered a few meals for dinner while my coworkers all cooed over my baby at the pickup counter. My husband took this free moment to excuse himself to the restroom. It was about then that I noticed an older man sitting in the dining room, watching us. As a new parent, this is something you deal with pretty regularly. Strangers staring, due to the fact that babies tend to invite attention. Not exactly weird, especially because I recognize this man as someone that frequents our location. But things get weird the moment that he approaches us, smiles at my son, and straight up asks if he could hold him. I politely decline this request when he pulls a $20 bill from his pocket. He says, "Why don't you take this, get yourself a sandwich, and leave the baby with me?" Again, only slightly less polite this time. I say, "No thanks." At this point, we had just gotten a new GM at the store. With him present and me wanting to maintain a good impression, I didn't fly off the handle on this strange man practically insisting on taking my baby. When he says, "Aren't you hungry? It's gotta be so hard to work 2 jobs. I'm sure if anything happened, the parents wouldn't blame you." That's when my husband came out of the bathroom and placed himself between the strange man and myself. "Oh, you must be the father." He then turned and offered my husband the money, but didn't talk about taking our son. That's when we as a family decided to make our way out of the store. But the man followed, offering us money the entire way. My husband, finally fed up, stopped on a dime. This caused the old man to run into him, and my husband stared daggers at him until he retreated back into the store. On the way home, I recount to my husband what had happened while he was in the bathroom, to which all he could do was shake his head and say, "What a weirdo." A few weeks later, when I was back on the job, the old man came back into the store. He ranted up and down about how he could have given that baby a better life than that young man. I told him I was the mother and that he could get his sausage biscuits somewhere else because he wasn't welcome here anymore. The GM, the same one that I had been so worried about maintaining an appearance in front of, instantly stepped in front of the counter and ushered this man out the door, while stating that if he were caught on the property again, he'd be arrested. I'm proud of myself for standing my ground the second time around, and my general manager even lauded me for taking control of the situation. While I no longer work at Mickey D's, I remember my time there fondly. A lot of the customers and my coworkers were kind and sweet people. But there's always that one that you'd be fine never running into again.